வெல்கம் பேக் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ். நம்ம அடுத்த பயாலஜி கிளாஸில் நம்ம பார்க்க போகிறது வந்துட்டு லோகோமோஷன் அண்ட் மூவ்மெண்ட் யூனிட்டில் அபவுட் த ஸ்கெலிட்டல் சிஸ்டம். நம்ம சோஃபார் வந்துட்டு மஸ்குலர் சிஸ்டம் கம்ப்ளீட் பண்ணியிருக்கிறோம். டைப்ஸ் ஆஃப் மசில்ஸ், ஃபங்க்ஷனிங் ஆஃப் மசில்ஸ் எல்லாம் கம்ப்ளீட் பண்ணிட்டோம். ஸோ நெக்ஸ்ட் வில் ஸ்டார்ட் வித் தி ஸ்கெலிட்டல் சிஸ்டம். ஸோ ஸ்கெலிட்டல் சிஸ்டமோட ஃபங்க்ஷன் என்ன அப்படின்னா, இட் இஸ் கோயிங் டு ஃபார்ம் த ஃப்ரேம் ஒர்க் ஆஃப் த பாடி. அதாவது ஒரு பாடியோட எந்த ஆர்கானிசமாக இருந்தாலும் அதோட ஸ்ட்ரக்சரை மெயின்டைன் பண்ணுறதுக்கு ஹெல்ப் பண்ணுறது வந்துட்டு ஸ்கெலிட்டல் சிஸ்டம். அண்ட் இட் இஸ் ஃபவுண்ட் இன் 3 ஃபார்ம்ஸ். அதாவது 3 டிஃப்ரெண்ட் ஃபார்ம்ஸ் இன் விச் ஆர்கானிசம்ஸில் ஸ்கெலிட்டன் இருக்குது அப்படிங்கிறது வந்துட்டு 3 ஃபார்ம்ஸ். ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஒன் ஹைட்ரோஸ்கெலிட்டன். ஹைட்ரோஸ்கெலிட்டனில் வந்துட்டு வாட்டர் இஸ் கோயிங் டு ஆக்ட் ஆஸ் அ ஸ்கெலிட்டல் மெட்டீரியல். அதாவது வாட்டர் தான் வந்துட்டு அந்த ஆர்கானிசமோட ஸ்ட்ரக்சரை, பாடி ஸ்ட்ரக்சரை மெயின்டைன் பண்ணுறதுக்கு ஹெல்ப் பண்ணுறது வந்துட்டு water. That is called as hydroskeleton. Example வந்துட்டு hydra. The second type of skeletal system is exoskeleton. இதில் வந்துட்டு skeletal framework வந்துட்டு will be formed outside the body wall. Body wallக்கு வெளியில் தான் இருக்கும். Hydroskeleton it can be present inside or outside. For example வந்துட்டு if it is going to be in case of sponges, it is going to be both inside and outside. ஹைட்ராவில் வந்துட்டு வெளியில் மட்டும். ஆனால் எக்ஸோஸ்கெலிட்டன் அப்படின்னா வந்துட்டு எப்போவுமே வந்துட்டு skeletal framework it will be found outside the body wall. இதில் the exoskeleton can be made of different types of substances. For example, shell in case of snails, chitinous exoskeleton is seen in insects, and vertebrates la vandittu scales found on fishes, nails that is found in many vertebrate digits, adavadhu fingers la irukum, horns and hoofs. Hoofs vandittu it is usually present in the four-legged vertebrates. Four-legged vertebrates la vandittu they will be found usually as hard structures in their limbs. Adu vandittu hoof nu solrom. So this can be type of exoskeleton. And the third type of skeleton is endoskeleton, which is going to form a structural framework inside the body wall. And this would be this endoskeleton would be usually surrounded by muscles and the skin and which makes the body wall. In the endoskeleton la vandittu there are 2 different types of endoskeleton. One is endoskeleton made of cartilages and the other one is endoskeleton made of bones. If endoskeleton is made of cartilages, எங்கெங்கே இருக்கும் அப்படின்னா யூஸ்வலி வந்துட்டு இட் இஸ் ஃபவுண்ட் ஓன்லி இந்த எம்ப்ரியானிக் ஸ்டேஜ் ஆஃப் டெவலப்மெண்ட். அப்போ மட்டும்தான் வந்துட்டு எண்டோஸ்கெலிட்டன் வந்துட்டு வில் பி மேட் ஆஃப் cartilages. After birth it is going to by ossification process. Ossification அப்படின்னா deposition of salt ன்னு அர்த்தம். By ossification process it is converted into bones after birth, and even after birth cartilages vandittu will be present in some parts like little part of sternum, in the pinna, that is the external ear, pubic symphysis, that is the part that connects the pubic bones of the pelvic griddle. Ingella vandittu the cartilages can be seen, and cartilage is made of cells called chondrocytes and has a matrix which is rich in salt called chondroitin sulfate. Chondroitin sulfate is present rich in the cartilages. So the cells of cartilages are called as chondrocyte and the matrix is rich in chondroitin sulfate salt. Bones vandittu it is usually found in all parts of the body, and hopefully we'll understand more clearly about when we study about the number of bones, where is it present, what is its functions and all those. And bones are made of cells, 3 different cells called as osteocytes. Osteocytes are functional bone cells. Usually OS, the term OS means bones. So osteocytes are cells that are helping in the functional part of the bone, and osteoblast, these are precursor cells that give rise to functional osteocytes, and osteoclast are cells that help in removal of the damaged osteocytes. So that is osteoclast cells, and along with these cells the bone has a hard matrix which has calcium phosphate deposition. Calcium phosphate deposition is seen maximum, and this calcium phosphate present in bone is commonly called as the bone mineral, and it is technically called as calcium hydroxyapatite. So this is about the endoskeleton, which can be either made of cartilages or bones. Coming to the human skeleton, we'll first see the number of bones, where is it present and all those, and then we'll go get into the details of their structure and its functions. So the human skeleton totally made of 270 bones at birth. So at birth we would have nearly 270 bones, and as days go by, when we mature, the bones are going to get fused, and finally an adult is going to contain only 206 bones. And the whole skeletal system is divided into two parts. One is the axial skeleton and the other one is appendicular skeleton. When you say axial skeleton, that is going to form the median line of the body, and appendicular skeleton vandittu it is attached to the axial skeleton. Lateral sides la attach aayirkum. Axial skeleton kuda lateral sides la attach aayirukradhu vandittu appendicular skeleton. Axial skeleton da vandittu it is going to form the main framework of the body. So what is this axial skeleton and what is this appendicular skeleton nu paakalam. So first axial skeleton. Axial skeleton அப்படினா the bones that form the median line of the body. Totally there are 80 bones, and axial skeleton is divided into four parts. First one is skull. Skull totally contains around 29 bones. So skull is made of 29 bones. These are the list of bones that are making up this 29 bones. So it is skull contains cranium, auditory, facial and hyoid bones, totally making up 29 bones. The next is vertebral column bone. Vertebral column is made of 26 bones. 26 bones coming from cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral and the caudal regions of the vertebral column, totally making up 26 bones. And sternum or the breastbone is going to be 1, and ribs there are going to be 12 pairs, so totally 24 in number. So all together making up 80 bones in the axial skeleton. The next is the appendicular skeleton. Appendicular skeleton is all bones that are laterally attached to the axial skeleton, and together there are 126 bones altogether, and this is divided into two parts. One is griddles and the other one is limbs. Griddles totally has 6 bones and limbs have 120 bones. In griddles, out of this 6, pectoral girdle, which makes the shoulder bone, has 4 bones, 2 on each side, and the pelvic girdle or the hip bones, there are 2 totally in the pelvic girdle, so totally making up 6 bones. And coming to the limbs, out of the 120 bones, 60 comes from 4 limbs, or the we can also commonly call it as the hands, and hind limbs or the legs is going to have 60 bones altogether, making up 120 bones. So 126 bones of the appendicular skeleton and 80 bones of the axial skeleton together makes up the 206 bones of the human skeleton. So the first part of the axial skeleton. So the first part of axial skeleton is going to be skull. Skull first we saw different parts of skull itself. Skull first part is cranium. Cranium is made of 8 bones, and all these 8 bones are joined together with help of joints which are called as sutures, and these sutures are immovable in nature. That is the speciality of this cranial joints. They are immovable in nature, which is called as sutures. We will see what is it made of when we study about the joints. And there are nearly 6 bones together that is making up the cranium. Out of that, frontal is going to be 1, which is in your forehead region, and parietal are going to be 2 bones, which is on the top part of your head, and temporal 2 bones, which is on the lateral side above the ear lobes is temporal bones, is 2 in number. Occipital bone is 1 in number. Occipital bone, it comes to the back part of your head, which is directly in attachment with the vertebral column bone. The next is sphenoid bone. Sphenoid and ethmoid forms the upper roof and lower lateral roof of the eye socket. So sphenoid and ethmoid forms the eye socket, upper and the lateral roofs of the eye socket. So together making up 8 bones in the cranium. The next is the auditory bones. Auditory bones, also commonly called as the ear ossicles. So we know ear os means bones. So auditory bones or ear ossicles, totally 6 bones found in the middle ear cavity. 6 bones, 3 in each cavity. So the 3 bones are malleus, incus and stapes. So in each ear there would be 3, totally making up 6 bones. And this stapes is the smallest bone in the body. The next is the facial bones. So facial bones, there are different types of facial bones. The first is nasal bones found near nasal chamber, 2 in number. Vomer bones is 1, which is forming actually the floor of the nasal cavity. Zygomatic or cheek bones is 2 in number, 1 on each cheek. And inferior turbinal or concave, which is 2 in number, this is found inside the nasal chamber. And lacrimal bone is 2, which is forming the floor of the lateral sides of the eye socket, which is called as the lacrimal bone because it is associated with the lacrimal glands in eyes. The next is palatine bone is 2 in number. Palatine bone forms the roof of your buccal cavity. And the upper and the lower jaw. Upper jaw is 2 in number, lower jaw is 1 in number. And out of all these bones, so far what we have seen, and the last one is hyoid or the tongue bone, which is 1 in number. All together, cranium 8 bones, auditory bones 6, facial bones 14, and hyoid bone or the tongue bone is 1 in number. All together making up 29 bones of skull. Out of this 29 bones, 28 bones are going to be immovable, and only this lower jaw bone, that is the mandible bone, has a movable joint. Others are going to be immovable in nature. The next is the vertebral column bones. Vertebral column bones, there are totally 33 bones which are found as 26 pieces. So 26 we have written as the total number of vertebral column bones. Anna, it is actually made of 33 bones which are fused, finally forming 26 bones. எப்படி fuse ஆயிருக்குன்னு பார்க்கலாம். So cervical vertebrae has 7 bones. It is the same. Thoracic vertebrae has 12 bones. It is all going to be separate, the same number. Lumbar vertebrae has 5. It is also going to be the same. Sacral vertebrae, actually it is 5 bones present as a single piece. So this side what I have written here is the number of bones, and this side we have written how many pieces it is present as. So it has fused to form, so 5 bones fused to form a single bone. And similarly caudal bones are 4 in number totally, which are fused to form a single piece. So all these 4 are going to fuse to form a single piece, altogether making up 26 pieces with 33 bones. So which place is it present? So based on their location, cervical bones are present in the neck, thoracic bones are present in your chest region, lumbar bone is present in your abdomen region, sacral in the lower abdomen, and caudal is the tail bone, which is a vestigial bone, which means that they are non-functional. And the total length of the vertebral column is going to be 70 centimeter in length for a normal healthy adult. And this vertebral column bones shows curves, that is there, it is not found as a straight line because they are arranged one after the other as in a lengthy manner, but they are not straight. They are going to show 4 curves. 2 are going to be forward curves and 2 are going to be backward curves. And the forward curves is seen in cervical vertebral bones and the lumbar vertebral bones, that is in your neck region, and in your abdomen region it is going to be forward curve, whereas the backward curves, that is the backward curve is seen in thoracic region and the sacral region. So these 2 are forming the forward curves and these 2 are forming the backward curves. And structure of a vertebral column bone, normally it is going to be a ring-like structure. It is called as a ring because it is having a central opening through which a spinal cord is going to pass through. We will see the structure in detail about the structure of the vertebral. It is just a ring-like structure. And shape of the vertebral column bones, they are going to have different shapes. That is, when you say shapes here, it is going to represent how they look like when they are taken separately. Ampiplation means they are going to be flat on both the surfaces like this. So the upper surface and the lower surface is going to be flat, which we call it as the ampiplation. And the next is procoelous. Procoelous means concave on the upper side and convex. Coelous here represents the concave side. So procoelous means, pro means first, so concave is seen on the upper surface and convex is seen on the lower surface. So procoelous, it is going to be concave on the upper side and convex on the lower side. So upper and lower sides are going to be concave and convex for procoelous. அடுத்தது amphicoelous. Coelous represents concave side, amphi means both, so it is going to be concave on both the sides. So the vertebral column bone look like this when it is separated. The next is ophistocoelous. Ophistocoelous means, so coelous represents concave, ophisto represents the lower side, so it is seen, concave side is seen on the lower side, so it is going to be like this. The vertebral column bone looks like this. அடுத்தது acoelous means absence of the concave side. So acoelous, it is going to be convex on both the surfaces. So it is like this. The vertebral column bone looks like this when seen from the dorsal side or the ventral side. So dorsal or ventral அப்படினா ஃப்ரண்ட்ல இருந்து பாக்கும்போதோ இல்ல பேக்ல இருந்து பாக்கும்போதோ வந்துட்டு it looks like this. So now we will see how it looks from the top. அதாவது நம்ம suppose this is a vertebral column bone. இந்த vertebral column bone இப்படி பாக்கும்போது நமக்கு வந்துட்டு இந்த மாதிரி தெரியுதுன்னு சொன்னோம். இந்த vertebral column bone இந்த வியூல, அதாவது இப்போ நான் கேமரால எந்த மாதிரி காமிக்கிறேனோ இந்த வியூல மேலே இருந்து பாக்கும்போது வந்துட்டு எப்படி தெரியும்ங்கறத வச்சு we will study the structure and the parts of the vertebral column bone, a single vertebral column bone. So this is how a typical vertebral column bone is going to look like. So it is a ring-like structure. We know it is a ring-like structure, and this ring-like structure, just imagine when I say a ring, it is going to be like this. That is, it is going to have a central opening. So it is in the surrounding வந்துட்டு ஏன் இந்த மாதிரி சேஞ்ச் ஆயிருக்கு, என்னென்ன ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் ஃபார்ம் ஆயிருக்குங்கிறத வந்து பார்த்துக்கலாம். So a ring is like this. So this central part which is forming a hollow space, this hollow canal, so this is going to be the hollow central canal, which is called as the neural canal, also called as vertebral foramen. So that is a vertebral foramen or the neural canal. And this neural canal is the part where the spinal cord is going to pass through. So spinal cord, which is continuous from the brain, is going to pass through this neural canal of the vertebral column bone. And this bony part, so this is a hollow space, and this bony part which is found around the neural canal is called as the neural arc. So the complete part, the bony part, you call it as, so the bony part which is found around the neural canal is called as the neural arc. Out of this neural arc, the dorsal side of the neural arc, so this is going to be the dorsal side. So this is the dorsal side. Dorsal side means towards your back. So on the dorsal side, the neural arc is going to form an extension. This extension is called as neural spine. This neural spine வந்துட்டு, it is going to be a pointed structure. So neural spine ஓட characteristic என்ன அப்படின்னா, it is going to be pointed structure. It has a pointed end, and this pointed end is going to move. So actually எப்படி இருக்கும் அப்படின்னா பார்க்கறதுக்கு, we'll just consider we are seeing it from the lateral side. So if this is the bone, the neural spine is going to extend like this towards the backward and downward. So it is going to be this pointed end இருக்கு இல்லையா, இந்த pointed end வந்துட்டு நம்ம டயக்ராம்ல காமிச்சிருக்கிற மாதிரி வந்துட்டு இப்படி ஸ்ட்ரெயிட்டாக இருக்காது. It moves backwards and bends downwards. So it is moving backward and downward. So it is going to be pointed backward and downward, which is called as the neural spine. So this is on the dorsal side. Now on the ventral side, that is this is the side that is going to face the body cavity, அதாவது உள்ளுக்குள்ள பாடிக்கு உள்ள வந்துட்டு it is going to face the organs. This side, which is called as the ventral side, the neural arc has a bulged extension. This bulged extension வந்துட்டு is going to have a soft region within it. So this is a soft part which we call it as a spongy bone. This part is called as the centrum. So this is the bulged part of the ventral side of neural arc. So the complete bony part you call it as neural arc. Neural arc la dorsal side is going to be neural spine. On ventral side is going to be the bulged part. Bulged part has a spongy bone inside it, which is called as the centrum. And in the centrum oda importance enna appadina, it is the place where the intervertebral disc is going to be present. So it is a place where intervertebral disc is found between two vertebral column bones. So this is the first bone. The second bone is also going to have a centrum, and in the place of centrum, so if this is one bone, this is another bone. If there is centrum here and centrum here, the intervertebral disc would be placed like this, so that these two bones are in contact through this intervertebral disc. So it is the centrum region. And the neural arc is going to have a transverse process. These two on the lateral side of the vertebral column bone, the bone is going to have some extensions which are called as the transverse process. So transverse process found on the lateral sides. So in a typical vertebral column bone என்ன நல்லா இருக்கும்னா central neural canal இருக்கும். அதை சுற்றி இருக்கிற bony part neural arc னு சொல்லுவோம். அந்த neural arc dorsal side neural spine இருக்கும். ventral side bulged part with centrum இருக்கும். lateral sidesல வந்துட்டு transverse process extend ஆயிருக்கும். அப்புறம் இப்போ we'll consider this is one vertebral column bone, and this is the next vertebral column bone, and this is the next one, and so on. So vertebral column bones இப்படி போகும்போது வந்துட்டு டைரெக்டாக வந்துட்டு ventral sideல வந்துட்டு they are going to be in contact with the centrum region. மற்ற regionsலையும் வந்துட்டு they will be attached to each other. அப்படின்னா they are not going to be sealed. அங்க sealing கிடையாது. There will be extensions in all these bones which are helping in attachment. So this bone, so if this is a first vertebral column bone, நான் just ஒரு உங்களுக்கு அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்ட் பண்ணுறதுக்காக சொல்கிறேன். if this is the first bone னும் second bone காண்டாக்ட் ஆகணும். அதுக்கு வந்துட்டு first boneல lower side there will be an extension on there will be two extensions actually. அதே மாதிரி வந்து இந்த செகண்ட் போனில் வந்துட்டு அப்பர் சைட் தேர் வில் பி சம் எக்ஸ்டென்ஷன்ஸ். இந்த ரெண்டு எக்ஸ்டென்ஷன் தான் வந்துட்டு டைரெக்டாக மீட் பண்ண போகுது. இட் இஸ் நாட் தட் த ஃபர்ஸ்ட் போன் வில் பி லைக் திஸ், செகண்ட் போன் இப்படி இருக்கவே இருக்காது. தேர் வுட் பி சம் கேப் பிட்வீன் போத் த போன்ஸ் which are going to be attached with the help of some extensions. இந்த எக்ஸ்டென்ஷன்ஸை வந்துட்டு என்ன சொல்லுவாங்க அப்படின்னா they'll call it as articulating facets. I'll tell you articulating facets. Similarly இந்த செகண்ட் போன் வந்து தேர்ட் போன் கூட காண்டாக்ட் பண்ணுறதுக்கு கீழே எக்ஸ்டென்ஷன்ஸ் இருக்கும். இந்த தேர்ட் போன் செகண்ட் போன் கூட காண்டாக்ட் பண்ணுறதுக்கு மேலே எக்ஸ்டென்ஷன் இருக்கும். Similarly goes on like this. So all the vertebral column bones, all these 26 pieces வந்துட்டு they'll be attached to each other with the help of structures that are found as extensions above and below them, which are called as articulating facets. Articulating facets அப்படினா வந்துட்டு these are structures that are going to help in attachment of vertebral column bone with the above and below vertebral column bones. So இப்போ articulating facets வந்துட்டு I have given you 4 small dots here. It is not that all are present on one side. ரெண்டு வந்துட்டு மேலே இருக்கும், ரெண்டு வந்துட்டு கீழே இருக்கும். ஸோ ஜஸ்ட் டு மார்க் இட் இன் த சேம் டயக்ராம் நாம் வந்துட்டு இங்கே இந்த மாதிரி போட்டிருக்கிறோம். ஸோ these two, consider these two are present on the upper side, the articulating facet on facet on upper side is called as pre-zygapophysis. So pre-zygapophysis na articulating facets found on the upper side of the neural arc or the vertebral column bone. Similarly, which is found on the lower side. So these two are going to be found on the lower side of the bone, that is the articulating facets found on the lower side. These are called as post-zygapophysis. So these are the parts of a vertebral column bone. So இப்போ வந்துட்டு remaining vertebral, so this is normal that has to be present in all vertebral column bones. எந்த vertebral, right from first cervical vertebrae இருந்துட்டு tail bone வரைக்கும் வந்துட்டு vertebral column bones ஓட typical structure இதுதான். இதில் வந்துட்டு for based on their functions சில bonesல வந்துட்டு there are some changes. அந்த structural changes மட்டும் என்னென்னு பார்த்துக்கலாம். So first one, the first cervical vertebrae. First cervical vertebral column bone வந்துட்டு it is called as atlas bone. இந்த atlas boneல வந்துட்டு we are going to have, so this is the neural canal, and the neural spine is actually very small or it is absent sometimes. Neural spine is going to be very small or sometimes cannot be distinguished at all. So நம்ம மார்க் பண்ணும்போது வந்துட்டு neural spine அந்த இடத்தை மார்க் பண்ணிக்கிறோம் so that we understand this is going to be the dorsal side, but it is going to be usually very smaller, but it is not flat, so we can write it as a neural spine. But neural spine is more or less absent in the first cervical vertebrae. And similarly transverse process also, these two side on the lateral side, transverse process நம்ம இங்கே வந்துட்டு இந்த இடத்துல இந்த டயக்ராமில் transverse processன்னு மார்க் பண்ணுறதுக்கு ரீசன் அது அந்த இடத்துல இருக்கணும், but it is usually absent or it is very less developed. So you will not be able to differentiate. இது சர்க்குலராக இருக்காதே தவிர bone, there would be some bulging part seen. That's all. It is not that நாம் இங்கே பார்ட்ஸ் மார்க் பண்ணியிருக்கிறதுனால வந்துட்டு transverse process neural spine இருக்குதுன்னு கிடையாது. Be clear, it is absent in the atlas bone. And these two parts what I have marked here, these are small canal like structures. அதாவது ஒரு சின்ன குழி மாதிரி இருக்கும். It is not hollow structures, small canal like which are looking like sulcus, that is ஒரு குழி மாதிரி இருக்கும், which is called as facets of occipital condyle. So it is called as the facets of occipital condyle. அப்படின்னா என்னன்னா facets அப்படின்னா the place that is going to receive. occipital condyle அப்படிங்கிறது வந்துட்டு occipital bone இருக்கு இல்லையா, cranium boneல அதில் வந்துட்டு ஒரு சின்ன எக்ஸ்டென்ஷன் இருக்கும். நான் உங்களுக்கு skull bone சொல்லும் போதே சொன்னேன், cranium boneல occipital bone is directly in contact with the vertebral column bone. Actually they are going to be directly in contact with this first cervical vertebrae. First cervical vertebrae கூட occipital bone attachment வந்துட்டு with the help of occipital condyle. occipital condyle அப்படிங்கிறது வந்துட்டு occipital boneல இருக்கிற ஒரு சின்ன எக்ஸ்டென்ஷன். அந்த எக்ஸ்டென்ஷன் வந்துட்டு will fit into these facets. ஸோ ஃபேசட்ஸுங்கிறது வந்துட்டு ஒரு சின்ன குழி மாதிரி இருக்கும். இந்த குழிக்குள்ளே வந்துட்டு that occipital condyle is going to fit inside. This is called as facets of occipital condyle. And the next one is odontoid channel. So odontoid canal is a part that is present in the ventral side of the bone, that is the first cervical vertebrae. இந்த odontoid canal அப்படிங்கிறது வந்துட்டு again this is going to be a hollow region. Here centrum is going to be absent. ஸோ இந்த இடத்துல ஆக்சுவலாக centrum இருக்கணும், பட் centrum is absent here, and instead of centrum there is a hollow region which is called as odontoid canal. இந்த odontoid canal ஓட யூஸ் என்ன அப்படிங்கிறது வந்து நம்ம செகண்ட் vertebral column படிக்கும்போது will understand. So odontoid canal is present in place of centrum. Centrum is absent. Similarly post and pre-zygapophysis are also absent. ஏன்னா மேலே இருக்கிற போன் கூட ஃபிட் ஆக போகிறது வந்துட்டு occipital condyle, கீழே இருக்கிற போன் கூட ஃபிட் ஆக போகிறது வந்துட்டு odontoid canal. ஸோ அதனால் வந்துட்டு there is no post and pre-zygapophysis. ஸோ a normal structureல வந்துட்டு இங்கே வேரி ஆகிற ஸ்ட்ரக்சர்ஸ் என்ன அப்படின்னா neural spine is more or less absent, transverse process is very less developed or sometimes absent, centrum இருக்காது, post and pre-zygapophysis absent-ஆக இருக்கும். ஃபர்ஸ்ட் இந்த போன் வந்துட்டு cranial bone கூட காண்டாக்ட் பண்ணுறது வந்துட்டு with the help of facets of occipital condyle. அடுத்த second vertebral column bone கூட காண்டாக்ட் பண்ணுற போகிறது வந்துட்டு with the help of odontoid canal. Now coming to the second vertebral column bone which is called as axis bone. Axis bone again has some changes. So first this is the neural canal through which the spinal cord is going to pass through, and transverse process is present, but it is little developed than the transverse process is present, and it is a little more developed than the atlas bone. This atlas bone விட கொஞ்சம் டெவலப்டாக இருக்கும், and neural spine is present, and this neural spine is going to be bifurcated. Is bifurcated அப்படின்னா வந்துட்டு ரெண்டாக பிரியறதுன்னு அர்த்தம். ஸோ இட் இஸ் கோயிங் டு பி a bifurcated neural spine. And instead of centrum, so centrum இருக்கிற இடத்துல வந்துட்டு instead of centrum there is a structure, an extension or a projection which is called as odontoid process. So in the odontoid process தான் வந்துட்டு, so this odontoid process will actually go fit into this odontoid canal. So இந்த odontoid canalum odontoid processum தான் வந்துட்டு they are going to come into contact with each other. Similarly, because they are going to fit with the first vertebral column with odontoid process, post and pre-zygapophysis is absent, and because there is there is no centrum is also absent here. And one more special characteristic of this cervical vertebrae, first and second cervical vertebrae, is first cervical vertebrae வந்துட்டு will help you in the nodding action of that is up and down movement of your head. So this first cervical vertebral column bone is called as the S bone, and similarly the second vertebral column bone will help you in the nodding action of no, that is your sideways actions, sideways movement of your head. So this is called as the no bone. And in case of the other cervical vertebrae, other cervical vertebrae are going to be typical cervical vertebral column bones, and the changes are seventh vertebral column bone la vandu neural spine vandu bifurcate aayirkum in seventh vertebral column bone. So in seventh neural spine is bifurcated, and third to sixth vertebral column bone la vandu transverse process and neural spine are going to be bifurcated. And all mammals in the vertebrates, all mammals have 7 vertebral column bone except for aquatic mammal, that is whale. Whale doesn't have a neck region, so this neck bones will be absent. Instead of saying it is absent, it is not absent actually. They are all fused. All the 7 cervical vertebral column bones are fused to form a single piece. So cervical vertebral number of whales is 1 instead of 7, because all the 7 are going to fuse to form a single bone. The next is the thoracic vertebrae. Thoracic vertebrae, there are going to be they are 12 in number, and they are going to give help in attachment of the ribs, and all the thoracic vertebrae is going to have a centrum. So a centrum will be present in all thoracic vertebrae, and they have transverse processes. Transverse processes would be facing downwards. So these are transverse process, and these transverse process would be facing downwards, and the neural spine is also going to be present. Neural spine is going to be present, and it is going to be very long, as well as they have very sharp edges, and it is going to be facing downwards. They have post and pre-zygapophysis. Na inga kaamikala, but still they have the post and pre-zygapophysis, and this one is the neural canal. So we know the thoracic vertebrae is giving place for the attachment of the ribs. So ribs vandittu enga attach agum appadina, ribs vandittu they will be attaching to 2 parts of thoracic vertebrae. ஒன்று வந்துட்டு when we study about ribs, we'll clearly understand how is getting attached. One is present, so this is one facet, that is facet usually means place of attachment, and the next facet is going to be present in the transverse process. So ரெண்டு இடத்துல attach ஆயிருக்கும், so they will be coming like this and attaching here. The first one, which is called as facet for articulation of capitulum of rib, means ribla vandittu head portion vandittu is called as capitulum, and the capitulum vandittu attach ஆகிறது வந்துட்டு இந்த இடத்துல. So this is called as the facet. Facetங்கிறது வந்துட்டு ஒரு சின்ன குழி மாதிரி இடம், அந்த இடத்துல தான் வந்துட்டு அந்த rib bone வந்துட்டு ஃபிட் ஆயிருக்கும். This one is called as the facet for articulation of capitulum of the rib. So similarly here also, this is a facet for articulation of capitulum of rib. And the second facet vandittu, it is present in the transverse process, which is called as, I am writing it here so that it is very clear. It is facet for articulation of tubercle of ribs. So for attachment of the next part of the rib, இன்னொரு head வந்துட்டு, so ribsல வந்துட்டு ரெண்டு head இருக்கும். One is called as the capitulum, the other one is called as tubercle. ஆர்டிகுலம் வந்துட்டு கேபிட்டுலம் வந்துட்டு இந்த இடத்துல அட்டாச் ஆகும், டியூபர்கிள் வந்துட்டு இந்த இடத்துல அட்டாச் ஆகும். ஸோ they will be attached to 2 positions in the thoracic vertebral column bone. So all the 12 thoracic vertebrae வந்துட்டு they are going to be a typical, that is they have place for articulation of ribs. The next is lumbar vertebrae. Lumbar vertebrae is going to be a typical vertebral column bone, that is நம்ம first படிச்சோம் இல்லையா ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் எப்படி இருக்குன்னு. It is going to be a typical vertebral column bone, but they are going to be larger and stronger, because lumbar vertebrae இருக்கிற இடத்துல தான் வந்துட்டு within your abdomen region there are many abdominal organs, so it has to give place for the abdominal organs to attach, அதோட muscles attach ஆக இருக்கும், அதோட சேஃப்டிக்கும் வந்துட்டு lumbar vertebrae is most important. So they are going to be larger and stronger in the among the vertebral column bones. And one more thing, lumbar vertebrae ஓட neural spine, there is only one change. Neural spine vandittu it is going to be flat, that is it is not having a pointed end, instead it is going to be flat. So lumbar vertebrae, all the 5 lumbar vertebrae are going to be typical, larger in size, and it is going to be flat. And the main function of lumbar vertebrae vandittu, it is because of that lumbar vertebrae we remain erect. The next is the sacral vertebrae. Sacral vertebrae vandittu, it is going to be 5 pieces of bones that are fused to form a single 5 bones that are fused to form a single piece. Approximately it is going to be triangular in shape, and there are 2 important structures that are seen. So we'll consider these are the fused bones. Idala vandittu, this is going to be more or less the first bone. So this is going to be the first one, and this is going to be the second one. Similarly, this is third, this is fourth, and this is fifth. So இந்த மாதிரி தான் 5 bones வந்துட்டு ஃபியூஸ் ஆகிருக்கும். இந்த ஃபியூஸ் ஆகிருக்கிற இடத்துல வந்துட்டு will not be able to see the fused part. Instead, அந்த ஃபியூஸ் ஆகிருக்கிற இடத்துல வந்துட்டு there would be small gaps seen. So அந்த gaps வந்துட்டு it is called as sacral foramen. Foramen அப்படின்னா opening. So sacral foramen அப்படிங்கிறது வந்துட்டு it is going to be the openings or the gaps that are seen in the point where 2 bones are getting fused. So இந்த இடத்துல 2 bones fuse ஆகுது, அந்த இடத்துல ஒரு சின்ன ஓப்பனிங் இருக்கும், அதுக்கு பேர் வந்துட்டு sacral foramen. அடுத்தது வந்துட்டு this structure, what I have put it boldly here, it is called as the median crest. Median crest na enna அப்படினா neural spines of all these bones வந்துட்டு they get fused and they are present as a single long piece. அதாவது நம்ம ஒரு சைடு பார்க்கும்போது இப்படி தெரியும், when we see it from the lateral side you will see this is the sacral bone and all the neural spines வந்துட்டு they will be fused to see and it will look like a structure like this. So this is actually the median crest, that is, so this is the median crest that is looking like this. So நான் இங்கே டயக்ராமில் இந்த மாதிரி போட்டிருக்கோம். It is not that சென்டரில் இருக்குன்னு, இது it would be found on your dorsal side facing downwards as a long pointed structure which is called as the median crest. So the next is the caudal bones or the tail bones. Caudal bones, or which is called as the tail bones, these are going to be 4 pieces that are fused to form, 4 bones fused to form a single piece, found as a single piece, and these are vestigial in nature, that is they are present but they are non-functional. So these are parts of vertebral column bones. The next part of the vertebral column bones is going to be the axial skeleton is going to be sternum. So sternum bone, it is going to be found on the ventral side of the body in the chest region, and it is around 15 to 17 centimeter in length, and sternum gives place for attachment of ribs. Ribs from the first rib to 7th rib are directly attached to these sternum, and this is absent. This sternum is absent in some of the vertebrates like snakes and turtles. In case of humans, sternum vandittu is made of 3 parts. The first part is called as the prosternum. So this one is called as prosternum. The first rib would be attached to prosternum, and the second part is called as the body of the sternum, the longest part of the sternum, and this is called as the body of the sternum or the mesosternum. And this helps in attachment of the second rib to the 7th rib, and நான் இங்கே சின்ன சின்ன ஒரு பென்ஸ் மாதிரி போட்டிருக்கிறேன் இல்லையா, these are all facets where the ribs are going to get attached to the sternum part. And the last part is a small extension seen which is called as metasternum. Metasternum, it is a very small structure, and this is going to be cartilaginous in nature. So prosternum and mesosternum are going to be bony in part, whereas the metasternum, which is the last part, is going to be cartilaginous in nature. So this is the sternum bone. Actually it is a single bone which is seen with three parts: prosternum, mesosternum and metasternum. The next part is going to be the ribs. Ribs, they are always paired structures and they are called as bicephalic ribs. Bicephalic means they have two heads, and ribs are going to be C-shaped structures, and this C-shaped structure oda anterior part, that is the front portion, the anterior portion is attached to sternum, and the posterior portion, the posterior side, which when it bends towards the back portion of your body, the posterior side is attached to the thoracic vertebrae. And when they are attached to the thoracic vertebrae, they form the two heads, which is called as the capitulum, and the other one is called as the tubercle. So it forms two sides, two heads, which is capitulum and tubercle. Capitulum is going to be a longer one and tubercle is going to be a shorter one. And the anterior portion, which is attached to sternum, a part of the rib, is called as it is actually made of cartilage. So it is cartilaginous in nature, so it is also called as chondro ribs. So chondro ribs because it is made of cartilage, whereas this part, that is which is attached to the vertebral column directly, is going to be a bony part of the ribs. So the ribs, they are totally 12 pairs. So 12 pairs, the first pair is attached to the prosternum, and the second to seventh are attached directly to the sternum, that is to the mesosternum, and other remaining 5 pairs are going to be not attached to the sternum. So the part which is directly attached to sternum, that is first to seventh ribs vandittu, they will be called as true ribs, and 8th, 9th and 10th vandittu, they are not directly attached, but they are attached to the 7th rib. So these are called as false ribs. And 11th and 12th rib vandittu, they are never attached to the anterior region. Anterior region vandittu free ah da irukum, they are not attached. So 11th and 12th vandittu, they are called as floating ribs. So the reason why they are attached is they are called like this is true அப்படினா வந்துட்டு on the anterior side they will be attached to sternum, on the posterior side they will be attached to the spine vertebral column bone. 8th, 9th and 10th வந்துட்டு they are called as false because posterior side la they will be attached to the thoracic vertebrae, whereas anterior side la வந்துட்டு they are indirectly attached to the sternum. Directா வந்துட்டு 7th rib கூட தான் attach ஆயிருக்கும், so they are called as false ribs. Floating வந்துட்டு எதனால அப்படினா, floating வந்துட்டு posteriorly they are attached to the vertebral column bone, but anteriorly they are free, they are not attached, so they are called as the floating ribs. And the true ribs, that is the first to seventh rib, take part in formation of rib cage. So rib cage அப்படிங்கிறது வந்துட்டு கம்ப்ளீட்டாக கவர் ஆகி ஒரு கேஜ் மாதிரி ஃபார்ம் ஆகும். So here it is covered with the sternum, on lateral sides with the ribs, the C-shaped ribs முன்னாடி இருந்து பின்னாடி வரைக்கும் போகும், பின்னாடி வந்துட்டு vertebral column bone. So it is completely covered, ஒரு கேஜ் மாதிரி, ஒரு கூண்டு மாதிரி இருக்கிறதுனால it is called as the rib cage. 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th ribs வந்துட்டு they are not a part of rib cage, they do not take part in forming a rib cage. ஏன்னா இது வந்துட்டு ஒரு இந்த இடத்துல வந்துட்டு ஒரு ஓப்பனிங் மாதிரி ஃபார்ம் பண்ணி, it is not completely covering the chest region, so this is not a part of a rib cage. And coming to this posterior attachment, this is the thoracic vertebrae. thoracic vertebrae ஓட டயக்ராம் நம்ம பார்க்கும்போது வந்துட்டு we saw from the top view, this is front or back view. இதில் வந்துட்டு இது thoracic vertebrae, that is the neural arc. இது ரெண்டும் வந்துட்டு transverse process we have seen. And இந்த transverse processல இருக்கிற facetsல ஒரு head attach ஆகிருக்கும். அப்புறம் towards the ventral side வந்துட்டு இருக்கிற ஒரு facetsல வந்துட்டு capitulum attach ஆகிருக்கும். So this head is called as the capitulum of ribs, and this facet which is attached to the transverse process வந்துட்டு it is called as the tubercle of the ribs. So this is how the ribs are getting attached. So ரெண்டு facets படித்தோம், அந்த facetsல வந்துட்டு இந்த ribs வந்துட்டு இப்படி தான் attach ஆகிருக்கும். So this is a rib cage. So with this we have completed the axial skeleton. So axial skeleton is made of the cranial bones, skull bones. Skull bones la cranial, facial, hyoid and auditory bones பார்த்தோம். அடுத்தது vertebral column bones. Vertebral column bonesல we saw the typical vertebral column ஓட structure plus all the 5 different vertebral column bones and their shapes and functions. அப்புறம் sternum or breast bone. அடுத்தது வந்துட்டு ribs and rib cage பார்த்துருக்குறோம். The next part is appendicular skeleton. The next is the appendicular skeleton. Appendicular skeleton வந்துட்டு is made of two parts, the griddles and limbs. Griddlesல வந்துட்டு ரெண்டு type of griddles இருக்குது. One is the shoulder bones or the pectoral girdles, இன்னொன்று வந்துட்டு hip bones or the pelvic girdles. So first வந்துட்டு we'll start with the pectoral girdle. Pectoral girdle is nothing but the shoulder bone. This shoulder bone is made of two parts. One is called as the clavicle, which is commonly called as the collar bone. You can feel it when you touch your collar region. And the other one is scapula. Scapula, this you can feel this bone also, which is found on your back side, right towards the clavicle region. Scapula, it is found, this is a triangular, more or less triangular shaped bone which is seen at your back. So idhila vanditu clavicle, this is, so in the diagram la vanditu when we see, I have represented only one of this pectoral girdle. So this is found on both sides of your body. So this is the clavicle, that is the collar bone, and this part is the scapula. And the scapula la vanditu this larger triangular shaped portion of the scapula is called as the body of the scapula. And this body has an anterior process, அதாவது ஒரு சின்ன extension anteriorly extend ஆயிருக்கும். That extension வந்துட்டு is called as, இந்த diagramல வந்துட்டு will not be able to represent it in the form of diagram, அந்த anterior process. So இந்த bodyல வந்துட்டு this body has an anterior process. So scapula body has an anterior process. This anterior process is called as Coracoid Process. And this Coracoid process la vanditu there would be a cavity formed. A cavity means ஒரு சின்ன குழி மாதிரி form ஆகும். So that cavity, so this is the cavity that is actually formed. This cavity that is formed, so நான் இங்கே darken பண்ணியிருக்கிறேன் இல்லையா, this is a cavity formed in the anterior process, that is the projection of scapula. And this cavity is called, இது வந்துட்டு coracoid processல இருக்கிற ஒரு cavity. This cavity is called as glenoid cavity. So this glenoid cavity ஓட importance என்ன அப்படின்னா, ஹியூமரஸ் போன், அதாவது நம்மளோட அப்பர் லிம் இருக்கு இல்லையா, அந்த அப்பர் லிம்போட அப்பர் ஆர்மோட போன் வந்துட்டு இங்கே தான் ஹியூமரஸ் போன். Humerus bone would be fit into that glenoid cavity. அதுதான் அந்த glenoid cavityயோட importance. And the next is the scapula வந்துட்டு ஒரு சின்ன ridge மாதிரி, இங்கே நான் காமிச்சிருக்கிறேன் இல்லையா, this part வந்துட்டு ஒரு சின்ன மேடு மாதிரி இருக்கும், would be found inside. This part, this ridge like part seen in scapula is called as scapular spine. இந்த spine வந்துட்டு it extends outside, and this extension in the process அப்போ வெளியில் எக்ஸ்டெண்ட் ஆகிறத ப்ராசஸ்னு சொல்லுவோம். This process is called as acromion process. இந்த அக்ரோமியன் ப்ராசஸில் தான் கிளாவிக்கல் வந்துட்டு அட்டாச் ஆகிருக்கும். ஸோ இந்த ஸ்கேப்புலாவில் வந்துட்டு ரெண்டு ப்ராசஸ் இருக்குது. ஒன்று ஆன்டீரியர் ப்ராசஸ் கால்டாஸ் கோரகாய்டு ப்ராசஸ். அந்த கோரகாய்டு ப்ராசஸில் க்ளீனாய்டு கேவிட்டி இருக்கும். க்ளீனாய்டு கேவிட்டியில் ஹியூமரஸ் அட்டாச் ஆகிருக்கும். அதே ஸ்கேப்புலாவில் வந்துட்டு ஸ்கேப்புலர் ஸ்பைன்னு ஒரு ப்ராசஸ், ஸ்கேப்புலர் ஸ்பைன் ஃபார்ம் ஆகும். அது வந்துட்டு அக்ரோமியன் ப்ராசஸை ஃபார்ம் பண்ணும். அந்த அக்ரோமியன் ப்ராசஸில் வந்துட்டு கிளாவிக்கல், தட் இஸ் த காலர் போன், வில் பி அட்டாச்ட். ஸோ திஸ் இஸ் பெக்டோரல் கிரிடில் மேட் ஆஃப் 2 bones. ஈச் பெக்டோரல் கிரிடில் இஸ் மேட் ஆஃப் 2 bones. நம்ம ஒரு ஷோல்டர் போன் மட்டும் இங்கே காமிச்சிருக்கிறோம். தேர் வுட் பி த சேம் ஷோல்டர் போன் ஆன் தி அதர் சைட் ஆஃப் தி பாடி. திஸ் இஸ் இஃப் வி கன்சிடர் திஸ் இஸ் த லெஃப்ட் சைட் ஆஃப் த பாடி, ரைட் சைட் ஆஃப் த பாடியில் 2 bones இருக்கும். ஸோ டோட்டலி மேக்கிங் அப் 4 bones in the pectoral girdle. The next part of the girdle is the pelvic girdle. Pelvic girdle also called as the hip bone. Hip bone also called as innominate bones. இதில் வந்துட்டு ஆக்சுவலி ஹிப் போன்ஸ் வந்துட்டு டோட்டல் நம்பர் வந்துட்டு ஹிப் போன்ஸில் 2, பட் ஆக்சுவலி தே ஆர் 3 bones that are fused to form a single piece. அதுதான் வந்துட்டு ஹிப் போன்ஸ். ஸோ தி pelvic girdle is divided into 2 halves, the right side and the left side. ரைட் சைடில் ஒரு போன் அண்ட் லெஃப்ட் சைடில் இன்னொரு போன் இருக்கும். ஸோ the one that is present on the right side alone has 3 pieces in it. So see, it is 3 bones, 1, 2 and 3 bones that are fused to form a single piece, which we call it as a pelvic girdle. So 3 pieces என்னென்ன அப்படின்னா, the large flat bone is called as ilium, and be careful about the spelling, ELIUM அப்படின்னா அது வந்துட்டு bone part, ilium bone. ILEUM அப்படின்னா வந்துட்டு அது small intestine-ஓட ஒரு part, ilium part of small intestine. So this is a big flat bone which is present on the upper part of the pelvic girdle, which is called as ilium. And the next is the ischium. Ischium is lower part and it is present on the back side of the hip bone. The next is pubis. Pubis is also present on the lower side, but on the ventral side. So this forms the back portion of our pelvic girdle. This forms the ventral portion, that is the front portion of the pelvic girdle. In the pelvic girdle வந்துட்டு there will be, so this regions, நான் இங்கே வந்துட்டு சின்ன சின்ன கேப்ஸ் விட்டுருக்கிறேன் இல்லையா, this regions வந்துட்டு they are actually fused part of these 3 bones. So these 3 bones are going to be fused bones. So these இந்த வந்து gaps கிடையாது. இந்த இடத்துல வந்துட்டு they will be fused with each other and they are fused to form, and at the point of fusion, so these 3 bones, ilium, ischium, pubis, 3 bonesum மீட் பண்ணுற இடத்துல வந்துட்டு நான் இங்கே ஒரு சர்க்கிள் மாதிரி போட்டிருக்கிறேன் இல்லையா, this represents there is a cavity there. cavity அப்படின்னா ஒரு சின்ன குழி மாதிரி இருக்கும். This cavity is called as acetabulum. Acetabulomoட இம்பார்ட்டன்ஸ் என்ன அப்படின்னா, the femur bone or the thigh bone fits into this acetabulum. So pubic bone or the pelvic girdle வந்துட்டு is made of 3 bones, ilium, ischium, pubis. These 3 bones will fuse, and at the point of fusion they form a cavity which is called as acetabulum, and this acetabulum is a place where the femur bone is attached, and this pelvic girdle will be attached to the other pelvic girdle. So if we consider this is going to be the left side of the pelvic girdle, on the right side there would be another pelvic girdle, and adoda pubis part வந்துட்டு it is going to come somewhere here like this. So this pubis bone of one side and the pubis bone on the other side, they would be attached to each other with the help of a cartilage. So this is the pubis bone on the other half. The other half it continues like this. So this pubis bone and the pubis bone on the other side is attached with the help of a cartilage. This cartilage is called as pubic symphysis. So they are attached with the help of a cartilage. The next is the next part of appendicular skeleton is the limbs. Limbs la first 4 limbs, that is your hands. Hands la first bone is going to be humerus. Humerus bone la vandittu there are 3 parts in the humerus bone. The first part that is fitting into the pectoral girdle is called as the head region, and the long bony region which is called as the shaft, and the end region that fits into the radius and ulna, that is their lower arm. It is fitting into this radius and ulna, and this part is called as the trochlear region. Trochlear region, and this is usually found near your elbow part. So head, shaft and trochlea. Shaft la vandittu there is a V-shaped bulging. This bulging is called as deltoid ridge, and this is a little bulged so that more muscles can be attached to it. So this is the humerus bone. And in the trochlear region la vandittu there will be a depression, and this depression is called as olecranon fossa. This is where the radius and ulna, actually the ulna bone is going to fit into this olecranon fossa. So humerus bone la vandittu main parts vandittu head, shaft and trochlea. Idhula head region vandittu will fit into the glenoid cavity of the pectoral girdle, and the next shaft region la vandittu deltoid ridge irukum, attachment of more muscles. அடுத்தது end portion is trochlea la vandittu olecranon fossa, ஒரு சின்ன cavity மாதிரி ஒரு depression மாதிரி இருக்கும் olecranon fossa. இந்த olecranon fossa ஓட function வந்துட்டு ulna bone கூட வந்துட்டு fit ஆகிறது தான் இந்த olecranon fossa ஓட function. And the next part is the radius and ulna, that is your forearm. And radius and ulna vandittu 2 bones, and one is called as the radius. Radius is going to be a little thicker than ulna, and ulna is going to be a little smaller in its width compared to the radius bone. And this small extension that is seen in the ulna bone is called as olecranon process. So this olecranon process fits into this olecranon fossa. So when it is fitting, it is such that they are fit such that it will not allow the backward movement, bending of your elbow. So this is olecranon process vandittu will fit into the olecranon fossa present in the humerus bone. And on the other end of the radius and ulna, they have 2 processes. So a process which is present in radius and process present in the ulna bone, this is called as styloid process. Styloid process of radius and styloid process of ulna together vandittu they are similarly commonly called as styloid process. This they are going to fit into the wrist bones of the hand. So this is radius and ulna. The next is hands or manas. These are made of 3 parts, which first part, which is attached to radius and ulna, is called as the wrist region. Wrist bones are also called as carpels. Carpels are going to be 8 in number. They are 8 in number, and they are arranged in 2 rows, and these bones are smaller in size. They fit into each other, usually present as 2 rows of 4 bones each. The next bones is going to be, so I'll just shade it out so that we can differentiate from the wrist and other bones. So these 5 bones, what I am shading here, this is your palm region, palm bones. So this part is your palm bones, and these are 5 in number. They are also called as metacarpals. So carpals are 8 in number, and metacarpals are going to be 5 in number. And the next is your finger bones, fingers, or digits, and these bones are called as phalanges. And these are going to be 2 in your thumb finger and 3 in your each finger. All the remaining 4 fingers is going to have 3 bones each. So 3 bones in 4 fingers and 2 bones in 2 fingers, together all making up the the hand region or manas region. So now all together, that is hands, radius, ulna and humerus, all together making up the 30 bones of a single hand. Similarly on the other hand, so there are going to be the 30 plus 30, 60 bones in your 4 limbs. The next is your hind limb. So hind limb, or the first part is called as the femur or the thigh bone. So femur bone is also called as the thigh bone. So within the femur bone, this part is called as the head, which fits into the next part is called as the shaft region. The end is called as the trochlear region. In the trochlear region there will be 2 bulged regions which are called as lateral condyle and median condyle. And these 2 condyle regions will have depressions. In the diagram, though it is not shown, so here there would be a depression and here there would be a depression. And the depression, so this region, that is between these 2 are going to be bulged regions, and between these 2 bulged regions there would be a depression here. This depression region, it is called as intercondylar fossa. Now inga star nu mark pannirukren, I will write it here, the name. It is called as intercondylar fossa. So condyles are going to be bulged regions. அதுக்கு நடுவுல ஒரு டிப்ரெஷன் இருக்கும். அந்த டிப்ரெஷனுக்கு பேரு intercondylar fossa. இந்த intercondylar fossa ஓட இம்பார்ட்டன்ஸ் என்ன அப்படினா, patella bone it will fit into this intercondylar fossa. So this is the femur or the thigh bone, which is the longest bone and strongest bone in our body. The next is patella. Patella ngiradhu knee cap. It is commonly called as the knee cap or the knee bone. So this is the patella bone. And this patella bone it is a small flat plate like structure, and this actually for joints between the femur and this is the tibia bone, which is seen in your legs. Tibia that is seen in your legs. So this patella bones joins between the femur and the tibia bone. In the patella irukra edam intercondylar fossa, which fits into which is a depression seen between lateral and the median condyle of the thigh bone. The next is tibia and fibula, which is seen in your lower leg region, and tibia is going to be the thicker bone and fibula is going to be thin in nature. And tibia fits on its upper side to the patella bone. So it fits into the patella bone on the upper side, and this fibula bone has a small extension on its lower end which fits into your ankle region of your foot, and this is called as lateral. That extension is called as lateral malleolus. This is tibia and fibula region. The next is your foot region. Foot region is again made of 3 parts. The 3 regions, first region is called as the ankle region. Ankle region is made of 7 bones arranged in 3 rows. This is first row has a 2 bones. 2 bones in the first row, and second row has only 1 bone, and the third row has 4 bones. So totally making up 7 bones in the ankle region, and the large bone present in the first row, it is called as the heel bone or calcaneum. Heel bone or the calcaneum bone. So together ankle region has 7 bones. The next region, this shaded, I'll shade out this part so that it would be easy for us to clear out which bone it is. The next part is the sole region of your feet. நம்ம உள்ளங்கால்னு சொல்றோம் இல்லையா, அந்த region. So this is the sole region. Sole region, again it is made of 5 bones, commonly called as sole region, and the bones are called as metatarsals. So I forgot to say you the name of the ankle bones. They are called as tarsals, and in sole region they are called as metatarsals. And this part is your fingers or digits, and these bones are called as phalanges. இது போன்ஸில் இது ஹேண்ட்ஸ் மாதிரியே வந்துட்டு in your thumb there will be 2 bones, and the remaining 4 fingers are going to have 3 bones each. So all together making up 1 femur, tibia, fibula making up 3, patella 4, and the remaining 26 in your foot region, together making up 30 bones in your hind limbs. So each limb has 30, and together making up 60 bones of total in your hind limbs. So together appendicular skeleton is going to be made of 126, 6 of the griddles and 120 of the limbs. So we have now seen all the parts of the bones. Next we'll see about joints.